Hello, traders. Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com, Sunday, November 16th, 2025. In this edition of your weekend video newsletter, we'll discuss where we might be headed this week now that the government shutdown is behind us and given Nvidia earnings on Wednesday. Last week's price action left us with 2 bullish, 10 neutral, and 8 bearish indicators. So we're cautious to say the least. Noteworthy and evident was the rotation into energy, while AI lost some steam last week. The New York FANG index did close pretty much flat right at the 50-day moving average, with Apple, Microsoft, Netflix, and Nvidia gaining while the other 6 components moved lower, with Tesla losing over 5%. The same could be said for the S&P 500, with noteworthy rotation into energy, with price action closing above the 50-day moving average, while RSI is right around 50. MACD and stochastics are fading for the most part, so this leaves us more cautious to start the week with Nvidia earnings on Wednesday. Qs look very similar, while IWM, the small caps, are below the 50-day moving average and bouncing on Friday, with the 10-year yield back above the 50-day moving average for the last 2 weeks. Finally, there's the New York Stock Exchange, which closed just below the 50-day moving average, basically in a range for the last 6 weeks. VIX did fade a bit, which enabled the indices to climb back above the 50-day moving average, while Gamma is still quite negative below current price action. So we have to be very cautious that we don't go down and test the 6,600 level in the short term. Overall, the indices are neutral going into this highly anticipated earnings on Wednesday. Junk bonds are neutral to slightly bearish. They are below the 50-day but above the 200-day moving average, holding along this area since October 10th on the last stab towards the 200-day moving average. Of course, that occurred when the U.S. and China had a spat over rare earths, as well as tariffs. The big issue, of course, is what yields are doing presently, as we see with the 10-year moving back above the 50-day moving average, looking like it's going to start a bullish trend. If that continues, that would put a lot more pressure on small caps, among other things. That left bonds fading back below the 50-day moving average on Thursday, closing much lower on Friday. There's a possibility we could see a reversal in all of these indicators this week, something we'll keep a close eye on and report back to you during the live sessions. Brent crude remains in a range below a descending or fading 50-day moving average, so there's not much of a change here. Gasoline, on the other hand, is back above the 50-day moving average and starting to show a bullish trend back to the flat 200-day moving average. Gold and silver managed to bounce, but did put in a swing high on Thursday, faded a bit more on Friday, so we'll watch this to see if it drops back towards the 50-day moving average in the short term. This is identifying some safety-minded traders as gold trades at all-time highs. Silver looks very similar, gapping down on Friday. The U.S. dollar remains bullish, making higher highs and higher lows, with the 200-day moving average just overhead. Overall, bonds, currencies, and commodities are neutral for equities in the short term. It's more about Nvidia earnings on Wednesday and the expectation the AI trade may be under pressure. Rotation into biotechs and energy continues, while semiconductors and tech managed to bounce back above the 50-day moving average. Energy by far is leading in a big way as we look for a breakout in the short term with stocks like ExxonMobil trending above a bullish 9, 20, 50, and 200-day moving averages, with volume increasing, showing institutions are active in the sector. Financials did pull back a bit, looking for a bounce as the 20-day is rising. Again, tech looks fairly strong. Industrials managed to bounce last week, while the major healthcare sector is consolidating recent gains, a little bit extended from the 20-day moving average, while the consumer discretionary consumer staples ratio shows signs that we might be ready to peak a little bit or at least flag out. It doesn't look anything like February, where the indicator rolled over in a very bearish tone followed. So this is something we'll watch very closely, especially after Nvidia earnings on Wednesday. Overall, sectors are neutral with some rotation obvious, and areas that we want to focus on: energy, biotechs, semiconductors, and technology as the potential holdovers last week. The stocks below from the IBD 50 look very strong. Most of the gold stocks are consolidating. Recent gains could see a follow through there as well. And stocks in orange are from scans of a 20, 50-day bullish cross that could see some follow through this week. AMD is consolidating recent gains after the news that the company was partnering up with OpenAI, as well as every other large tech firm was noted over the last several weeks. So we'll look for AMD to continue this consolidation in the short term and look for opportunities if it breaks out into year end. Again, the gold stocks look like they're consolidating recent gains. Watch for any move to the upside. They've been very strong. Anglo Gold, Alamos Gold, another gold stock, Barrick Mining, Buenaventura Mining ad, Eldorado Gold, another one of these miners that looks very strong, Goldfields, Kinross Gold, bouncing at the 50-day, Newmont Mining. Again, a lot of the biotechs and pharmaceutical names were very strong last week. Arcutis Biotherapeutics, ARQT, back above the 20-day moving average after a little bit more than a 2-week fade. Volume picked up again on Friday. Look for this to turn back up. RSI looks pretty good. If it opens higher on Monday, put a stop under that low and look for a follow through in the short term. Argenx trending very strong. Volume shows institutions have been picking up shares as it trades near $1,000 a share. Also keep in mind that Netflix split 10 for 1, so we'll see how that fares on Monday. Axum Therapeutics, again, biotechs trending and strong. Celestica bouncing at the 50-day moving average. This might be a trade this week as well. If it starts out higher on Monday, put a stop underneath the low of the day. Look for a follow through. RSI, MACD, stochastics resetting. Comfort Systems, FIX. This has been trending most of this year after the April 7th low. Every time it comes back to a major moving average, whether it's the 20-day or the 50-day, most recently, like Friday, bounced and followed through. Look for this to continue in the short term. CrowdStrike back above the 20-day. 20-day is almost a straight line higher, up and to the right. Looks bullish. Security stocks. Eli Lilly putting together a deal with the White House at the end of October into November. Look for Eli Lilly to consolidate perhaps up here. We did sell some put premium, so we're looking to add to that once we see a bounce and a move higher. Note the volume. Insmed, this one was mentioned last week, continues trending. Volume looks good. Institutions are present. MACD and stochastics are embedded and bullish. Another biotech, KRYS, trending, looking for more upside. Volume shows institutions are still interested. Micron, it's been on the watch list for weeks now, continues this trend as semiconductors held above the 50-day moving average on Friday, and with Nvidia earnings on Wednesday, we'll look for this to continue or to drop and consolidate more off of recent highs into year-end. Next tracker, solar stocks looking good. Looking for a follow-through. Nice bounce at the 50-day moving average. RSI turning back up. Stochastics and MACD are resetting. Look for a follow-through in next tracker in the short term. With Nvidia back above the 50-day and earnings on Wednesday. Pharmaceuticals, as well as biotechs, look very strong. RIGL, occasionally on the IBD 50. Higher highs, higher lows, looks very strong. Look for a breakout this week above that 45 level, above the 43, 44 level, and look for higher into year end. Retailers might catch a bid, so keep an eye on your favorites, whether it's Ralph Lauren or Estee Lauder or TJ Maxx, Walmart, Target, whatever. They may catch a bid in the short term as we look for rotation to support higher prices into year end for this 2025. Okay, traders, that's going to do it for me. This is Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com with your weekend video newsletter for November the 16th, 2025. I'll send out a watch list later tonight around 12 midnight on the East Coast, around 9 o'clock on the West Coast, so be sure to check your inbox for that. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Be cautious to start the week. Take care. We'll see you in the morning. Ciao.